Hello, welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger on April 25th. 25th? 25? Which one is it? 2021. Uh, Maybe someone can let me know in the comment. Is it supposed to be April 25 or April 25th? I'm pretty sure I knew it once upon a time, but it's one of those things that seems like I gradually forgot all the grammar and rules I was taught in school and tend to get my speech a little bit mangled when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean, I know we say 22nd, we don't say August or April or March 22. Well, I'm sure some people do. And in the end, does it really matter? Does it really matter? Because when I say 22nd, 22, or if I say 25, 25th, you know what I'm talking about. So in the end, is it really that important for us to be picture perfect with our vocabularies, with our vocations, with our articulation? Probably not. You know, the other day, well, in fact, actually yesterday, I took part in a story circle on this new app that I've been sort of tentatively, occasionally using called Clubhouse. I'm not going to sit here and advertise for Clubhouse because they, they're not paying me to. And I think I still have my reservation with regarding to is it a worthwhile thing for me to want to endorse. But if you're interested, just go Google Clubhouse, iPhone, iOS app. They're coming up with the Android version pretty soon, so I heard. Long story short, Clubhouse is a app where people can go on there and converse and talk. It has kind of a chat room, social media vibe, although there are a lot of professionally organized events on there, such as comedies and motivational speeches and stuff like that, that are quite interesting. And this story circle that I took part in was one such event. Uh, Basically, anyone who was interested could get on stage and tell their life story, and then they get to get feedbacks from the audience and other people that are on the panel, on the panel's speakers, and then just go on and on. For the scene yesterday was struggle makes us stronger. So you're supposed to tell a story that illustrates the struggles you have come across in your lifetime. Now, right away, of course, talk about struggle. Those of you that are watching this channel, those of you that paid attention to my various documentaries, podcasts, and all the information I put out there, know that when it comes to struggle, I'm definitely not a stranger to that concept, both as a totally blind and partially deaf martial artist, um, competitor, musician, trying to make it in this big, scary, uh, very visual world of ours. I definitely am no stranger to struggle. So, needless to say, as soon as I saw the title, the working title for the story circle, I jumped in with both feet, wanting to get my story in there and take that chance to, of course, promote my channel, promote my podcast, promote my documentaries. So there I was, doing housework, messing around on the computer, checking email, while people telling their stories uh, in my through my headphone. There were a lot of good stories and a lot of very typical ones. Uh, People who were into drugs and alcohol or other addictions, and then they found Jesus Christ, and then everything's peachy, hunky dory now. And there are people who were very, very rich, very successful, and suddenly they get struck with some crazy illness and became disabled or came near to dying. There were a lot of stories like that. A lot of them were very heartfelt, very touching, and some of them were very predictable and kind of just uh, pedestrian, I guess is a kinder word I can use. And then there was this speaker that went on the stage, and he, uh, I'm pretty sure that he won't mind me using his uh, first name and retelling his story, but just to be safe, we're just going to say his name was David. So David went on stage, and immediately I started to notice that David had one of these extremely slow uh, speech pattern. Now that's ironic for me to say because a lot of people have accused me of talking very slowly, and a lot of people have pointed out to me that sometimes when they listen to me, they can lose patience, they get impatient, and they'll fast forward or stuff like that. They'll lose track of what they're actually listening to because I speak so slowly. David put me to shame. Okay, this guy went on stage and his way of talking was something like this. I'm going to just give you guys a rough imitation. Hello, everyone. Wow. When I came into this room, I didn't think that there would be so many interesting stories. And when I came into this room, I didn't expect to be touched so deeply. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and I'm honored to be standing here sharing my story with you all. And that was the temple David was setting. And I'm a little bit ashamed to say, but he didn't even get out of his intro before he completely lost me. I mean, there was nothing wrong with his voice. There was nothing wrong with his delivery, but it was so slow and so deep and so melodic that I quickly lost track of what he was talking about. I quickly stopped being able to pay attention to what he was talking about. All I what had going on in my head was this little evil voice, this little evil imp, this gremlin, this goblin in my head, jumping up and down, up and down. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Come on, get to the point. Hurry up. There's like 20 more speakers after you before you get to me. I want to be able to say my piece before we get to dinner time. Hurry up, hurry the bloody hell up. And I was getting really frantic in my head. And I just wasn't paying attention to whatever he was saying. It's like I just went off in my own world doing housework, doing uh, other stuff, and drinking coffee, playing with the cats, and rearranging action figures. You name it. I was just like totally distracted. And every few minutes, I would sort of have my attention would kind of wander back to what was going to, actually happening in my headset. Every few minutes, I would divert my attention back, and then I would hear David said, "Well, the other day, I was sitting down, and then my attention would be off again. And, oh my God, this guy's still going. This is going to be all day long. This is going to last all day long. Oh my goodness. Can we just get rid of this guy, please? And then a few minutes later, my attention would come back again, and he's talking about, well, we were sitting at the dinner table, and one person said, and I would like, oh God, this is torture, torture. Maybe I should just quit now. Maybe I should just turn this off now. This went on for about 15 minutes when something he said snapped me back to full attention. I still remember the phrase that suddenly captured my full attention. The phrase that was, I loved her with all my heart because she is my little girl, but there were times when I hated her so much that I wonder if death would have been a mercy for her and for me. Now, okay, that's some heavy stuff. Uh, that's some really heavy stuff. And even though I had no idea what he said up to that point, that snapped me back to full attention, and I started paying attention to every word he was saying from that point on. What's going on here? This is obviously a guy talking about his daughter, but what could she have done that's so bad that made him sometimes would hate her and sometimes would think that maybe death would be easier for everybody? What's the story here? That was the that was a point in his story that he captivated my attention. And I'm not going to stand here and just repeat word by word in his uh, uh, speed and rhythm what he said, but I want to tell you guys his story. I want to tell you guys David's story. So, in in as detailed a summary as I can give you, David is this guy who is very successful. He was a owner of several businesses, made a lot of money. He was an international consultant for behavior and science behind psychology and stuff like that. He was very accomplished. And David had a daughter that had some kind of mental disability that prevented her from being able to speak very well. Now, when I say she can't speak very well, I don't mean that she's a mute. She actually can form words, but because of the mental condition, which I totally didn't catch because when he was talking about her mental condition, I wasn't paying attention. But because of her mental condition, she had a really hard time uh, getting people to understand her words. From my understanding, there was no mother in the picture, or maybe something happened to the mom. But David ended up having to raise his daughter, take care of her, while running several businesses and do all the amazing things that he had to do to keep them alive. And David said that for years and years, 10, 20 years, while raising his daughter, he had such a hard time understanding her because of her problem, because she had such a hard time putting words together. And it got to the point that when she started to become older, when she started to grow up, it caused her to have massive temper tantrums. David described to the audience of the times when they were at the supermarket, and he would be trying to make sure that he get what they needed for food and for supplies, and then his daughter would say something, and he would fail to understand her, and she would keep repeat it 3 or 4 times, and he still can't understand her because his mind was elsewhere. And the daughter would get so angry, and she would lose control of herself, and she would grab things off the shelf and start throwing them and start pushing shelves over in the store, and then they would end up getting thrown out of the store. David talked about times when he would be driving and the daughter would be either in the passenger seat or in the back seat, and she would ask him something and he would be unable to understand her. And again, she would repeat herself, but because he was driving, he couldn't understand what she was saying. And she would get so mad, she would reach over and grab the steering wheel and try to run both of them off the road. David talked about incidences at home when he's trying to do some work related stuff and his daughter would try to ask him a question and he would not be able to understand her and she would get so angry that she would attack him, tearing at his face, tearing at his clothes, and try to bite him and try to hurt herself. He described so many of these heartbreakingly difficult situations in 10, 20 years of raising his daughter. The misunderstanding, the crying, the tears, the fear, the police getting called by people, the social worker getting involved, the broken dishes, the broken furniture, broken window, broken hearts. He said he started to throw all the money he made into trying to find a cure for her. If only he could just make her words make sense. If only that she would stop throwing these massive and very dangerous and very embarrassing temper tantrums. And then one day he was busy preparing breakfast and thinking about what he had to do for work, thinking about getting her to school, and so on and so on. And his daughter came into the kitchen and she said something to him, and he couldn't understand her, and she repeated herself 6 or 7 times, and he still couldn't understand her, and she flew into an incredible rage. She just charged toward him with a weapon in her hand. I think I believe he said she grabbed the knife off the counter or something and just charged toward him. And he said at that moment, he looked her straight in the eyes and he said to his little girl, he said, "Baby girl, I'm really trying, but I can't understand a word you're saying. Can you please find a way to communicate with me without words?" And then the most amazing thing happened. The little girl looked her dad right in the eye, and in nearly perfect English, she said, "Daddy, I have been trying to." And that's when David realized that yes, she had been trying to. And he was the one that had been failing to understand what she had been trying to do. When he started paying attention to her body language, to her facial expression, he realized that quite often, almost like there was telepathy between them, he knew what she wanted, what she was wanting from him, without there ever need to be words. These 10, 20 years of torture both of them went through was because he was so focused on listening to her words rather than actually slowing down and take a good look at her. At this point of the story, I was honestly starting to feel kind of ashamed of myself because in the beginning of David's presentation, I was that guy. Yeah, I was that guy. I was so busy trying to think of my own speech, my own presentation. I was so busy trying to think how long he was taking, how much time he was taking. I wasn't listening. I wasn't giving him the attention he deserved. I wasn't fulfilling my part of the bargain in this story circle, which was when someone is speaking, it was our job to give them our attention, to support them, to give them our feedback. I wasn't living up to my end of the bargain because I was so involved with myself. And then I started to think that this was such a beautiful, beautiful speech, beautiful experience that David shared with us because quite often that's what we do. Quite often when we say we don't understand, it is not the other person's fault. It's really ours because we are so focused on the words they're saying, we're so focused on what we want to hear in our own mind, we're so focused on how they are making us feel at the time, rather than actually slow down and look at them, really pay attention to what they are trying to say. When a son goes to a dad, go to his dad and said, Dad, the kid next door, his dad, take him fishing every Sunday. How come you never take me fishing? Uh, the son is not really talking about fishing, and the son is not really talking about liking fish. What the son really is saying is that I really would like to spend some time with you. Uh, When a spouse says, I got so much to do, you are never here to help me. Immediately, the person hearing that get defensive. What do you mean I was never here to help you? I was here last week. I did this for you last week. I did this, I did that. I bring money home I have to work. I work and bring money home. What else do you want? But is she really saying what she's saying? Is she really saying that you're never here? No. She's saying, I'm really frustrated right now. I'm really frustrated right now. I don't know how to cope with a certain issue. Can you be my sounding board? Can you just listen and understand how frustrated I'm feeling at the moment? Now, it's not easy. It is not easy. No one can do this perfectly. I pride myself to be a really good listener. Heck, it is my job a lot of time to be a good listener. But I run into two problems. Personally speaking, the first problem I run into is I am a fiercely logical and uh, kind of a practical, pragmatic person, which means when you complain to me, immediately my focus is okay, I hear a complaint, let's solve the problem, and then we can move on. Uh, you talk about fishing, I'll take you fishing, and then we can close this chapter and move on to the next problem. Right? That's the way I go through my life. And the second big problem for me is I'm usually too involved with probably a gazillion projects and things I want to do, need to do, have to do. So I often have the mentality of there's a problem, let's solve the problem and then move on. I'm always in a hurry. I very rarely can slow down and really, really focus unless there is a clear-cut problem. What do I mean by clear-cut problem? You tell me the roof is leaking. Okay, I'm going to slow down enough to go get this dealt with. You tell me the cat is sick. I'm going to slow down and go deal with this. But when there's no clearly defined problem right in my face, sometimes I fail to slow down enough to figure out what the real problem is because I'm in too much of a hurry. On top of that, a lot of the things I do, making videos, making podcasts, doing speeches, doing presentations, require me to talk a lot. So a lot of time, I'm used to being the one who is talking and not quite always be ready to be the one who is listening. These are my personal failings, and I totally acknowledge them, and it's something that I continuously try to work on improving upon. Um, I'll give you guys a real example between me and my beautiful, intelligent girlfriend. There's kind of a little funny little thing that really illustrate the kind of the way that I work, or the way that I don't work. Uh, my girlfriend once said to me, she said, you know, so and so uh, they have a date night. Uh, every Friday, and they get together. They spend the whole Friday night with each other, and they eat out, and then they go dancing and get massage, and they come home or they play games together. Why can't we ever have date night on Friday? And honest to God, like really, like as daft, as crazy, as stupid as it's making me sound, the first thing out of my mouth was, "Well, you don't like to play games." And then even stupider, the second thing out of my mouth, and it's a pandemic, so it's not like we can actually get together and go out anyway. It is not until days later when I suddenly was thinking about this conversation, I came back and I smacked myself upside the head. I'm like, that's not what she's talking about. She's not talking about wanting to play game. She's not talking about wanting to go out. She's talking about wanting to spend more time together, you big dope. You stupid jerk. That's what she's talking about. So I'm saying all this is because understanding conversation, understanding communication, understanding listening, it's one thing. But it's so important for us to be on guard because it's so easy to turn off our listening ear. And I don't mean the physical ear. Because just like in the beginning of David's speech, I was hearing him, the sound was coming to my ear, but my actually listening ear, the part of my mind that should be processing the information, was turned off because how slow he was speaking. So it's important for us to be mindful when that listening ear might have been turned off when they really should be on at the time. I'm going to close off today's uh, episode with two things that David mentioned at the end of his speech. The first thing was David said it's amazing because he realized that in his daughter's young mind, in such a young girl, was a model for resolving social conflict. The model for resolving social conflict. And this is what he said. He said when people need something, want something, have to express something, they talk. When they are not being heard, they yell. When they are still not being heard, they cause chaos. They make a mess. They create a scene. And when even that doesn't work, they attack. Just imagine if we are all better at listening to each other, then people would have to yell a lot less. Therefore, less people would be throwing temper tantrum and creating riots and chaos. Therefore, there will be a lot less terrorism in the world. And that's all you take. Listen, listen, listen. Listen to what people really are trying to say. Listen to what people are really trying to show you, rather than how much the word offends you, how much the words don't make sense, how much the words are misused, how much the words are uh, heavily accented. The second thing that David said at the end of his speech that actually put a smile on my face, he said, if God really wanted us to just talk, if God thinks that talking is more important, then he should have given us 100 mouths and no eyes and no ears. But instead, he gave us two nostrils, two eyes, two ears, only one mouth. Why is that? Because God already figured out that we should pay attention more than we open our mouth to talk. That's why we have two ears and one mouth, because we should listen more and talk less. And with that, thank you for checking out today's Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday, where you get to listen to me some more.